Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reich. Are you trying to master the game of life without success? There are secrets and strategies to living your best life. We'll share some of them with you on today's show. Take advantage of this series to become an expert at relationships. All relationships. It's time to live the life that you deserve to live. Now, here's your host, Sandra Reich.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Sandra Reich, a show about living your very best life. I'm really pumped up today. Just back from the couple retreat, I do have to put a shout out about the courageous couples who came and joined me in Mont-Tremblant. And we went in deep and we worked on relationships. And let me tell you, for upcoming shows, relationships, that we have the science now. There are strategies to change your relationship. And these couples came and did the work. And not everybody comes and does the work. And always know that there are things that you can learn that can help you and change your life. And that's really what this show is all about. I also wanted to say, wanted to thank my listeners because, you know, when you're doing a radio show, you sometimes don't really feel there are listeners. I mean, this is not a show that a lot of people call in on. And we just got a shout out that we are the second in the Health and Wellness channel on Voice America. So we were very pleased and we're very happy and very appreciative that you guys listen to our show on a regular basis. It means the world to me. It means the world to my guests. It's a labor of love, and we are always looking for topics that will help you live your best life. The other thing I'm always looking for is to bring on someone who will help me with the topic in question and who will bring lots of brilliant information. So today's show, a topic that comes up often for people, myself included, really anyone, because it's a part of our lives, food. We eat food, we love food. Some people live to eat, some people eat to live. But is food really always just about food? We get a lot of calls from people who talk about binge eating. We get calls from people who are not eating to count the calories, bulimia, anorexia, emotional eating. Are any of these issues in your life? If they are, you might find today's show very interesting because food is not always about food. When you hear yourself saying, like, I have no willpower, a lot of people say that to me, I have no willpower, I can't resist the sugar. It's not about the sugar. We're going to cover that today. So I brought with me clinical counselor Melissa Hindley. She's just unbelievable. She's just been slaying dragons. You know, she works with people and I hear about her work. I'm very, very happy she's part of my team and I hear about her work and it's just incredible. And one of the cases that she's working on right now, I assigned her recently, is a food issue. And I warned the person when I referred them to Melissa that Melissa is going to immediately make the connection that the food issue is not about food. And that is exactly what happened. So clinical counselor Melissa Hindley, specialist in anxiety, PTSD, food issues, emotional issues, is back in the house. Welcome back to Straight Talk, Melissa. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Thank you.
Can't wait to hear your wisdom on this. So when I approached you and asked you, I actually didn't even approach you. I just told you you're doing this show because you were the right person for it. I do that sometimes. I just put you on the schedule because you've been so kind to come and offer your knowledge and you're helping so many people. How does it feel to know that so many people are responding to the show and thereby you and your pearls of wisdom? How does that feel?
It feels amazing. Honestly, this is my paycheck. This is my reward is seeing the work that I do get to inspire other people. And to me, that means this is why I do my job.
Amazing. So, you know, food, when I asked you about that topic, about food issues not necessarily being about food, what was the first thought that came into your head? I'm curious.
Yeah, that I agree. And that's why I feel like a lot of people have difficulty because they really truly believe it is just about the food and that they're hungry or that they're having cravings or that, like you said, just wanting the sugar fix. But there's so much underneath that. And I'm so happy that you put me on this topic because, as you know, I love emotions and I love talking about emotions. So it really ties in and we'll get started about what the connection is.
Well, first of all, that was my next question. Is there a connection? Obviously, this is a little bit of a leading question, but is there a connection between food and emotions? And what is that connection? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, so a lot of us, I mean, we do, you know, we're human. We want to avoid pain and we go towards things that bring us pleasure. So a lot of there's a lot of different ways that people can escape their pain or escape different emotions. So today we're going to focus on food because that is one of the outlets that we can use to escape our pain. So anytime that we might be feeling bored or any intense emotions like anger, fear, sadness, any anxiety or shame, these are very intense emotions that not all of us, it's hard to regulate. It's hard to feel the emotions. And a great way, short term, of trying to avoid these emotions is by stuffing them literally with food, right? So it's really making that connection with foods, and we'll talk about more why that is that connection, but food is a great way to keep distracted.
Okay, so we eat food, it's part of our lives, breakfast, lunch, supper, snacks, but we use food sometimes emotionally. So, and I think we have to put it out there. And by the way, if you want to join the conversation, 1-866-472-5792 or text us at 514-796-4357. Any questions or comments? But we have to put it out there. Let's level the playing field. We've all used food emotionally. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see it in the movies even. You go through a breakup, you see in the movies the girl gets a tub of ice cream and she eats the ice cream, curls up into fetal position in bed. Yep. So we use food. And by the way, sorry to get a little political, but I can't help it because it is something that I feel strongly about it, is that the food industry, by the way, capitalizes on that. They've studied that sugar, salt, and fat put together is an addictive compound. Mm-hmm. Most junk foods have those three things in them, and they are designed to set up to make you want to have more and more and more. So we take the ice cream or whatever, and it's, as you said, temporarily soothes us. Yeah. And it starts really in infancy when you think about it, because babies are given sugar water at the hospital, which a lot of people object to these days, and should object to that, by the way, because that's what trains our palate right away. You may not know this.
I didn't know that.
It trains our palate to want sugar starting from infancy because it calms down a child. But you know what? I'm going to sidebar on that. You go on an airplane and see a child screaming, and the mother is handing them like a bottle of milk, which is also filled with sugar. Sorry, sidebar. Mm-hmm. And you literally see the child go into a drugged state. Mm-hmm. So why is that bad? Because one could argue, well, what's wrong with that? We want to calm the child down. What's wrong with that starting in infancy? What's the problem? Because I think that's an important angle here I want to get to.
Yeah, great that you brought that up, because what are you teaching about their emotions?
What are you teaching?
Yeah, because if the child is upset or if you're upset going through a breakup, right, just using an external thing to kind of shut down these emotions are not going to be helpful, and it is just a short-term fix, and you're not giving the child enough strategies to help deal with tantrums, deal with any emotions that come up. So you're just kind of putting a Band-Aid.
So it starts maybe in infancy. So maybe if you're that person who, when you're upset, just eats and doesn't feel your emotions, you may have been someone who learned this like beyond your earliest memory.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, when I was thinking about what to talk about on the show, a lot of these connections even can relate back to childhood. And what are the messages that I start to think about? What are the messages that my parents start to do around food?
What were they?
So I remember that every time my dad would pick me up from school, or if I was tired, and I don't really remember what emotions I was feeling, but I remember very often, and maybe more often than usual, he would bring me to the Dépanneur, which is the corner
grocery store, yeah,
and he would buy me any bar of chocolate that I wanted.
Right. If you were tired.
If I was tired, if I was maybe had a long day at preschool, I don't really remember what emotions.
What was the message you learned from that?
That anytime I'm feeling down and tired, that
you get a chocolate
bar, a reward.
Right. But we do that. I just did that like 15 minutes ago with my own daughter.
Yeah.
Right. You saw me do that.
Yeah.
So we do that. Yeah. And we live in a society that does that all the time. Is we reward with food, we grieve with food, we turn to food for a lot of things. And I don't think that every single time that your father did that he's caused damage in you. No. I think we have to look at the global message about food, which is that maybe soothing with food is the problem.
Yeah.
But maybe enjoying food is not.
No, well, that's where we have to learn the difference. That it's not all the time you're allowed. It's a balance, right? You're allowed to enjoy the chocolate bar, but it's just now the reason why I brought that up is because now I totally, like in my case, anytime I'm feeling upset, I go to a chocolate bar, and it's interesting, and to make that connection and it was actually only today I made that connection. I'm like, why? Because I just thought we love chocolate, but it's interesting that every time either we finish like an activity together or something, that we'd go all the time to either get ice cream or go get a chocolate bar.
It is interesting, and it's not a problem until it becomes a problem, right? Because a lot of people, whatever, they grew up with that reward concept or soothing, and it didn't become a problem in their life. But then, like the case that I referred to recently, food becomes an issue when you're struggling, you're having a difficult relationship with food, you're gaining weight, you're not happy about it, and you find yourself eating, and you think to yourself, I just don't have willpower, which I think is not true, because I remember reading years ago that anyone who wakes up every morning has willpower, because it takes willpower to get out of bed. So we all have willpower. So if you're having trouble letting go of the food or the calories, there's something else at play. And I really want that to be out on this show. It's not about the food. Sometimes it's always about the food, but this is not about the food. No. So what else is the food? What function is it serving? So we're putting on the table, maybe it's serving the function to soothe you. Yeah. So we would need to replace that soothing. So what could you do on a day that you're feeling tired and down, other than go get a chocolate bar? Yeah.
So first I would definitely try to ask myself, what am I feeling? So to label the emotion, because remember, we have to separate, which we'll talk about later, the difference between how do I know that I'm really hungry or if it's just emotionally eating.
How do you know that? No, you can't tease us like that. How do you know that? Teaser. You want to save it? It's up to you.
Yes. But that there's a lot of, trying to tell the difference between the two, but it's important to try and self-soothe in other ways. So instead of my first reaction is to want to go buy a chocolate bar, is anything that I can soothe myself. So whether it's taking a deep breathing, whether that's going to work out to try and get my energy out in working out, that's very helpful. But anything, it really has to be individual. Anything that helps you make you feel better in the moment, like as a healthy soothing.
And I would add in that, one step that you have to put in is also to acknowledge, what am I feeling now? Yeah. And what do I need? The famous Sandra, what do I feel and what do I need? Yeah. So if I'm feeling like down and tired, what do I need? Do I need a nap? Do I need a hug? Yeah. Is that something I could ask for? Yeah. Sometimes we don't always know what we're feeling. We just go for the food.
We just go right away because it's automatic. And if that was done, let's say for my example, if that was done to me all the time, I got rewarded with food, then it's normal that's going to be my first reaction, right? Because it's kind of a learned behavior. But it's about catching it, because you can't fix anything if you don't know what's going on. So awareness is always the first step, and absolutely, and then ask yourself, what do I need? And sometimes reducing stress can be very helpful, so that you're not going towards food as
well. That's another good point. The stress response induces more eating. And when we come back, we'll talk about self-love versus self-hatred, because sometimes food could be used as self-hatred, and your relationship with food may not be as loving as you think. Let's talk about that when we get back. We'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats, and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
A fresh look at today's health. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
So we're back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. And before we go back into this food discussion, I'd like to talk about the different disorders that show up with food as well, Melissa. But I want to talk about self-hatred and self-love, because I think it's not only relevant if you have a problem with food, but I'd go so far as to say that how you eat tells us a lot of the story of how you feel about yourself. This is a bit of a controversial statement on my part to say, and I feel I can say it because I've lived on both sides. I feel that there was a time in my life where I fueled my body with very, very unhealthy foods. I mean, man, I was young and they tasted good, and I certainly understand that. But I also think that when you're eating, there has to be some level of you questioning if this is what you're putting in is something that is going to be loving. And the word I like to use these days is nourishing to your body. So I'm not saying the occasional junk food is like off limits. I'm saying, do you overall nourish your body? Do you see food as a way of loving yourself? Now, some could say, well, a Big Mac feels like love, or a chocolate bar feels like love. I understand that, but I'm not sure that's love. I don't know. Maybe I'd call that lust. You know, if we were to do an analogy, I'm not sure it's loving, because after you have the Big Mac, you don't always feel so well.
No,
a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah, you don't feel so good.
No. So you have to, I'm putting out there that you need to be curious also about, are you in general loving to yourself and nourishing yourself in the way you live your life? I mean, every Straight Talk show is about that. Exercise, eating properly, sleeping, self-talk, they all come back to it is, what is your relationship with yourself? And so sometimes when people show up with the disorders, which I'd like to talk about, is, I'm sure yourself, like me, I don't start with talking about food too much. I start with talking about what is their relationship with their self, with themselves. So what are some of these disorders that show up? Like, what shows up with food issues in your office? What are they?
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest things that we're seeing now in the offices is overeating, where it's like binging, where, you know.
And what is that, binge eating? Yeah. Is that really a problem?
Great. So it's like binge eating is when it's like it's not the meals that you're eating, but it could be when you overeat, when you overstuff, and you just kind of go in the closet and just like munch on anything you can get your hands on. You're just kind of going all out, and you're not mindfully eating, which we'll talk about too at the end. But you're not being aware of what you're eating. You're just kind of grabbing whatever is in your sight and binging on that.
Yeah, so there's lots of things that cause that. So we've talked about self-hatred, but you did mention high stress, and I thought that was interesting, because what is it about stress that makes you want to eat more food? And we'll come back to other disorders as well.
Yeah, so when you're feeling very stressed, there's a lot of cortisol. It's a hormone that gets released in your body when you feel really stressed. And so this is going to lead to a lot of cravings, and these cravings lead to like very fatty and sugary food. Now, when you're going in your closet and eating anything that comes first off, like the first thing that you see that you start to eat, in your brain, when we start to eat this, why it feels so good is that your brain starts to then develop more dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter in your brain, which is our pleasure center. So, and this is what you refer to as the
crack cocaine of the brain.
Yes. So you can see how rewarding it is that you end up eating, more dopamine gets released in your brain, and you start to crave that and love that because it is your pleasure center. So that's why it can become a bit of an addiction.
And the food industry knows this, by the way. Sidebar to some shows I've done on nutrition. You may want to listen to them, because the food industry knows that the crack cocaine of your brain is being lit up.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I love how you brought that up, because there's a lot of commercials or, candy commercials or chocolate bar that you'll be happy and you'll feel bliss and it's all this wonderful things. But they know that, and they feed off that, because you do get a lot of of dopamine, which that's why it can, when you're feeling really sad, that's why for a little bit of a moment, it makes you feel really good eating it until we'll talk.
You get high. You get high.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we talked about binge eating. There's also, of course, the famous bulimia, which is interesting because bulimia is actually an anxiety disorder. A lot of people don't know that. So it's, yes, body image is relevant. Bulimia is when people eat and then are, for calorie reduction, they're sticking their finger down their throat and binging and purging. Body image is a factor, but also there's an anxiety response there, feeling very uncomfortable with the food in your body, then purging, feeling better. Again, an addictive cycle that can be treated quite successfully.
Yeah, and it's also an anxiety disorder because a lot of people that feel, again, anxiety, we've talked about this before, but that anxiety wants that external control. And a lot of times when people feel out of control, they use bulimia as a way to feel more in control.
Right, so true.
That's why in a lot of my clients, it's really about teaching them how to regulate their anxiety and how to feel more in control of their emotions so that they don't feel like they have to lead to throwing up or hurting themselves in that way.
Yes. And what other food issues come up?
So then we have the anorexia, which the food issue of not eating because of the fear of the calorie intake, very concerned about body image, fear of getting fat. And this is when we see it's very distorted in terms of, it's almost as if when they look at in the mirror, they see someone who is very, very critical, very fat, very ugly, like very, you'll see these a lot of critical thoughts towards body image, but really that's not how they appear in reality. So it's very distorted.
Okay, so people get into trouble with food issues and eating too much for many different reasons. One thing I want to put out there is that even just being tired has been shown to cause people to eat more. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just the sugar, you get a little bit of a rush.
Right.
So it's like a little bit of a short-term pick-me-up, but then you'll crash because the sugar, if you're eating too much sugar, you'll eventually crash and it actually can make you feel worse or more tired. Because after the sugar rush, you're crashing. Right.
So, and you were saying before the break that there was something you wanted to say about the connection between emotions and food, and you teased us with that. Can you go back to that?
Oh, the difference between telling us if it's an emotional eating or, because that's why I have a lot of clients say, well, maybe I'm just really hungry. So how do you tell the difference between, is it emotional or am I just really hungry?
Well, you have to definitely pause, right? Because you have to pause and feel, is it really physical hunger that's happening or is it, again, emotional hunger? And what is food doing for you? So how do you think you make the difference?
Yeah, great. Because it's easy to mistake the two, right? It's
easily.
Easy. So definitely what I tend to notice is that emotional hunger comes a lot quicker. Like it just comes on all of a sudden. Versus hunger, you'll start to feel like the physical signs, like your tummy will start grumbling. You'll start to, sometimes I feel like my blood sugar I get a little bit queasy or shaky. Oh, yes. So that we know is more of a physical hunger, but emotional hunger is really in the moment, it just kind of feels like it's just getting sprung on. So that would be one sign. Another sign would be if we're craving like a specific food. Right? Because if you're hungry, you don't care what you're eating. You just want to eat, right? You're hungry, you have to nourish your body. You have to, it helps us to, again, survive. So, but if we're craving a very, very specific food, then it's a sign that we might be emotionally eating because if we're hungry, it doesn't really care what it's eating.
Okay, so you're really saying slow down and really, see what's going on there. When you're working with someone who's eating things that they shouldn't be eating and then they beat them, that's the other one that freaks me out is people eat and then they beat themselves up about it. What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, that's another sign to tell how if you're physically just hungry or emotionally is how do you feel afterwards when you ate, right? Do you feel shame and you feel...
What if you do feel shame?
Well, that's a sign that you're emotionally eating because now if you were just physically hungry, you wouldn't feel guilty about that. Right.
But isn't that also a paradigm shift that that's another thing that we have to tell people once you eat the food to be okay with it, stand behind your decision. That's no?
Because as soon as if you do make that decision, as soon as you punish yourself and do that self-harm, that's the part of self-hate. And there's another motive. What payoff do you get from eating something and then punishing yourself over it? What payoff do you get from that?
Well, I think it's some sort of guilt payoff. Like if you beat yourself up, then you figure it like it's you're not as bad a person. I mean, it's starting from a judgment, right? I shouldn't eat this. I do eat it. Yeah. And now I'm going to beat myself up so I feel less guilty about eating it. Yeah. I would say that if you actually gave yourself a break and said, it's okay, I'm going to get back on the horse tomorrow, you'd be more likely to succeed.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, I agree, because also a lot of people feel like shaming themselves or saying, oh, I shouldn't eat that, and how can I have done this? I fell off the wagon. And so when they start to criticize themselves, a lot of people, when I ask them, what's your payoff? They're like, well, I'm trying to prevent it from happening the next time. I'm like, is it working?
Right. And do they laugh when you say that? They laugh
because it's true. It's not working, but they feel like tough love. And so that comes where I would take a next step further is like, who gave you in your life tough love that now their voice becomes your voice and now you're treating yourself that way. But it's not working. It's not, if you really want to make the changes, then it's with compassion. You would never tell if your best friend was like, oh, shoot, I fell off the wagon, I had this Big Mac, you would never say, oh, you're a horrible person. Why would you do that to yourself?
True.
You're so disgusting. Like, you would never say this to somebody else.
Right, but we do it to ourselves all the time.
But why do we treat ourselves worse, right? We would never say that. So you would encourage them. You would help them to be like, okay, you had a slip or this, you went towards something that you didn't feel good after, but what are we going to do about it?
Right. So, but what do you say if somebody is like, that's fine. So I forgive myself for having the Big Mac. It's okay. Mm-hmm. But I'm like 50 pounds overweight and I know I want to lose weight. Like, yeah. I can't keep telling myself it's okay. So what do I do?
Yeah. So that's where we have to, what we said before is we have to understand our signs, like our triggers. So for example, if you're going to have a stressful week at work, or you're going to see maybe a family member, or there's going to be a function, is to plan ahead, is to cope ahead. Like, so being aware of your triggers, I find is very helpful so that you're not kind of walking in blindly and then setting yourself up to not to fail, but then to beat yourself up over it afterwards.
Right.
So really to try and understand your triggers.
Okay. So understanding your triggers and having some sort of plan if you're trying to lose weight. I mean, before we go to the break, I mean, we can agree that obesity is at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's getting worse and worse and worse. So although we don't want food to become an issue in people's life, we want people to have a loving relationship with food. We also don't want to advocate that, eat whatever you want and it's fine. Love yourself. It's all good. We want you to love yourself, but we also want you to love yourself enough to have a healthy body.
Yes.
Is that important in your view? I think that's very important.
Very important. So if you're going to a function, or that's the thing. It's like a lot of clients say, well, I have so many functions. I have so many social gatherings that I can't, we're going all these restaurants that I can't, I have to eat what they're eating, right? But it's just, like I said, creating a plan, knowing that that's a trigger for you. And if you've had a stressful week, is just, maybe beforehand, go on the website and see the menu and try to plan.
Very smart.
Plan beforehand, because when you're in the moment, and your emotions get in the way and your cravings get in the way, you might not make the best decisions.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I'm also going to talk about when you change your relationship with food and the foods you eat, your cravings will change. And I can definitely attest to that because my entire life when I changed the way I eat. So we'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Riche.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Riche. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Your life, your health, your network. This is Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
So we're back. We're just chatting away here because food is such an interesting issue. And I have to share that in my life, when I did make some big food changes, because I think that I did use food as comfort a lot. And we were talking about, my parents were really into food and really into rewarding you with food, and lots of moments with food, happy moments, sad moments with food. And I think I had a conflictual relationship with food. And the thing is, as I said, food has a lot of things in it to make you very addicted. So when I decided to change the way I eat, I lost those cravings. So I don't find it hard anymore. I honestly do not get cravings for the bad for you food. But the thing is, I don't eat it in the first place. So it's hard. You don't get the craving if you don't eat it. So there are possibilities here. And we're sitting in front of some pictures of my past, and Melissa saying, my God, you look so different. All the change was the food, but the food represented a lot in my life. And I think that this is an important topic because I think it's something that people do talk about a lot. And I also want to bring on I want to put two things on here is number one, people talk a lot about it and get very addicted to food. But number two, people say some interesting things because when I was in the stage that I ate a lot bad food, people would say things to me and wouldn't think twice about coming up to me and saying, "Are you pregnant?" which would really make me feel very bad about my body. And now I've lost a lot of weight. And who would have thought? I never had any empathy for people who are like, "Oh, I can't put on weight." I was like, really? Like, that's a problem? But it's interesting how much people talk about body image. Do you notice that? Because it's come to the point that people say it so much to me that I almost got a little uncomfortable, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's nice, but it's interesting. And then people say things when you gain weight, they say, "Oh my God, you're getting weight." And when you lose weight, they go, "Are you okay?" Like, it's interesting, don't you find?
Very, yeah.
And it says something about us, because why are we so uncomfortable if someone gains weight or loses weight?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, interesting. And I can totally relate is that when I went and I tried to eat healthier, I lost a lot of weight. And so I would get comments before that I had to lose weight. And then when I did lose weight, I remember my boyfriend saying, "Well, you're too skinny now." Like, I was like, I thought this was what I was supposed to do.
Right.
But no, it makes people very uncomfortable. I'm not sure quite why. Why would you think?
Well, I think I think it only makes you uncomfortable if you yourself, I hate to say this is very controversial, but if you're uncomfortable yourself, it's almost like if you're in a marriage, this is my metaphor, if you're in a marriage that's not going that well, and your friend decides to divorce their husband, people get really freaked out because it's almost like, "Oh my God, how dare you do that? When I'm not leaving my marriage, you must stay and be miserable too." And it's a little bit like that. It's like, you lose weight, you gain weight. I'm thinking if you're comfortable with your body, it's kind of irrelevant to me if somebody loses or gains weight. It's it's not like I wouldn't say. I would say, "Oh, you've lost some weight, looking nice," but it's not a big thing. So again, this comes to the fact that we do live in a very body image society where body image is a huge factor. And it's a big thing, which compounds the problem, doesn't it? Especially for women.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
a lot of pressure, and that goes back to, the self-love, like being okay and accepting, who I am, but also can I give the nutrients and the love through food where it doesn't make me feel bad or I don't feel shame. Can I give myself that.
Right. So what do we do about this problem, and what are some of your strategies, Melissa? I mean, if I'm a person who's eating, I don't want to eat badly, but I keep going back to the bad food, what can I do? It is not that easy.
No, it's not easy, especially when we talked about before, because you do get that pleasure center activated through the dopamine. So
what's the dopamine? Oh yeah, the crack cocaine.
Yeah,
okay, I want to make sure you explained it. Yes, you did.
So that's important. It's not that easy, right? But again, we talked about just because again, food is a good way to distract ourselves from feeling any difficult emotions. So we really need to get to the root of the problem as to what am I avoiding? What emotions may I be avoiding? So really putting a label on them. It's like a mechanic, when you bring your car to a mechanic, and if they can't label what the problem is, then they're not going to fix the car. So it's really about understanding ourselves and what emotions that are we feeling, and learning to accept our feelings, even the bad ones, even the ones that we don't like. It's learning how to accept, like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling angry, and it's just learning how to accept that without wanting to cover it up with a food, right? But again, I also talk about too how emotional eating stems from, I talked about a little bit that before, but emotional eating also stems from feeling very powerless over emotions. Like we feel, in our situations, we feel very powerless, and food is a way, because we're controlling it, it's our decision. It's a way that in a very negative way, we feel like it's bringing us more power. And that's what I talked about into the binging and purging, is that it makes us feel more in control. So it's about learning and that's what you can help with a therapist, or, there's different books out there, is just learning how to gain more mastery over your emotions, gain more power, or make you feel like you're in control and that your emotions are not running the show. Okay, so how do I learn to be more in control? Is there a plan? Yes. So this is what it's called mindful eating. And this is part of mindfulness. And this is something that I had to learn too, because I think I got it through my grandfather. I'm not sure. But, he used to eat very fast. And that's another problem I have too, is that I eat super fast. But I think that was a way that I tried to get rid of my emotions too, is just like to eat really fast and then stuff it and then feel sick, and you have to you don't feel very good because you're eating way too fast. So that's another thing to be mindful of, is are we eating too fast? But really it's just about, so mindfulness is trying to be in the present moment and really be aware of our actions. Because a lot of times when our emotions are running the show, it feels like our behavior becomes automatic. It feels like we're not really in our bodies. It's like they're just like, when you're going in the closet or the cupboard and just grabbing any food that you see, it doesn't really feel like you're in control. Yeah, and it's a slippery slope, really, is what you're saying, because even though I was saying I don't get many cravings now, it's not like I couldn't turn that around in 5 minutes. Go into the closet, start eating some junk food, and the cravings will start coming. It's like being a smoker, honestly. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. It's just weird because we need food to stay alive. We don't need cigarettes to stay alive, but yet the same thing happens. The same process happens. Yeah. Addictions. At the rehab where I work, that's what we talk about, cravings, that they at first they feel very intense and feels like they're in control and that you can't win over against them. But the more times you have a craving and you don't satisfy it, the more power you start to get instead of the craving. Because every time you have a craving and then you satisfy it, it's like this cycle just keep repeating itself every time you satisfy the craving. But just because you have a craving, and if you use other strategies and not satisfy it, you're actually building another pathway in your brain. That's why then the process of the other pathway of that led you to go for the junk food it's going to be it's called extinction. So that pathway in your brain is going to start to erode. Oh, you're so smart, Melissa. That was so well said. That's so true. Those are neuronal pathways in your brain, and the more you feed, excuse the pun, but the more you feed the same old neuronal pathways, the stronger they get. And otherwise, as you said, they will extinguish, and you'll have less of those cravings. Yeah. What else can you do? I see some great notes here. Yeah. So really just trying to be mindful in the present moment. So again, when I was saying that you just go in the closet and you feel like you're not in control, is really to try and take a step back, like you said, and just try to be aware when you're eating. Instead of me just rushing and eating my food very fast, just try to take smaller bites. You can also use this mindfulness technique. Is really about trying to include all of your senses in eating.
Okay.
Right. So making sure that you're paying attention to the texture of the food that you're eating, the smells, the taste, right? To really try. And why would we want to slow things down and really bring in all our senses?
Well, basically just to really feel your food and really be in the moments. Mm-hmm. And that is a good thing to do to enjoy your food anyways. Yeah. I mean, I've learned that chewing thoroughly is it's a very big part of the experience. It's, again, not stuffing. It's not enjoying, savoring. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're doing that, you're also, when we're eating slower. Okay. And we're chewing, we're making sure that we're chewing our food and we're eating slower. It's also giving our brain time to send a message to our stomach that we're full.
Okay.
So instead of just eating very quickly, your brain doesn't, send that message fast enough to tell you to stop eating. So by slowing a lot of your eating down can help send that message a lot faster. So that's the mindfulness. There's a lot of research and there's a lot of you can also research this online. There's a lot of YouTube videos or tips on how you can really go through mindful eating. But it's really helped me to not eat so fast and not get sick, but also to not binge or not kind of stuff my face.
Because that's another thing is like, I used to also eat these enormous meals and while I'm eating it would feel great. But then that feeling in your stomach after, it was like really, like I really don't like that feeling.
No. Yeah. And that's like my boyfriend does that because, in his culture, his mom taught him that he cannot leave food on the plate.
Oh, we should talk about that after break. The waste not, want not culture.
Oh my God. And he gets so sick, like his stomach's in pain. And he cannot stand that there's food on the table. And I try to tell him it's okay. But, it's just like, again, when we talked about childhood rules or how our childhood messages can play out in our relationship with food today, it's really hard for him not to eat the full plate.
Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people grew up with that waste not, want not, which, I've read is like a really scarcity way of thinking. It's not like that little piece of food on your plate is going to feed someone in Africa. No. And the thing is that forcing yourself to eat is not helping someone, but it's actually hurting you.
It's doing more harm.
So another really good tip is not to eat everything on your plate. There's a therapist who works on our team whose husband also had that issue. And this is a strategy. At the end of the meal, he would not be able to stop eating the plate because he felt very guilty about it. Yeah. She would take her fingers and stick them in the food so that he wouldn't be able to do it. She wanted to break him of that habit. I know you know who that is. She's a regular on Straight Talk. She's a regular on Straight Talk. I'm just saying, if you follow Straight Talk, you'll know who I'm talking about. But it's a wonderful strategy because she was trying to make the point to him that you don't need to eat everything that's on the plate. Yeah. And that, if someone stuck their fingers in it, you wouldn't eat it. So what are you doing? You're hurting yourself. Yeah. It's a really important point. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll try to bring this topic home and see how you can really, instead of having a conflicted relationship with food, have actually what I would call a love affair with food in a good way, not in an addicted way. We'll be right back on Straight Talk with Sandra Reish.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Join the therapist who is affectionately known as the Couple Whisperer, Sandra Reish, on her famous couple retreats and change your life forever. Sandra offers couple retreats in beautiful locations several times a year that can radically change your love life. Couples describe her retreats as life-changing. Regain that loving feeling, bring your intimacy to a new level, and rediscover excitement and joy. Find out more at helpforanxietydepression.com or call 514-796-4357. We all want love and safety. Now you can have it. Call 514-796-4357 or helpforanxietydepression.com.
Change your life forever with the latest cutting-edge products for home study treatment for anxiety, featuring the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression and host of Straight Talk, Sandra Reish. Sandra is joined by top therapist Georgia Dow in this revolutionary anxiety videos therapy series. Thousands of people have benefited from this scientifically proven treatment approach. Isn't it time you chose yourself? Visit anxiety-videos.com right now. That's anxiety-videos.com and change your life forever.
Your life, your health, your network. Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. To connect with the program today, please call 1-866-472-5792. Again, that's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to info@helpforanxietydepression.com. Now, back to Straight Talk. Here's Sandra Reish.
So we're talking food today. Do you have a love relationship with it, a hate relationship? Is a love relationship even good? I left off with having a love affair with food. I want to be careful about that because you could have a love affair that means you just keep eating and eating and eating. But it's not really a love affair when you think about it. I mean, even when you think about love, it's not like stuffing yourself with it. That's not really, that's obsession, right? Mm-hmm. So how can you really nurture a healthy relationship with food? And doesn't always come back to, even though I say I changed my food ways, it wasn't really my food ways that changed first. It was my relationship with myself. Mm-hmm. Doesn't it really come back to that really at the end of the day? Yeah. Doesn't it always?
Yeah. Your relationship with yourself, how you handle your emotions, how you label them. Like a lot of times I find the relationship with food is that they're, and a lot of my clients, they're actually angry at somebody else. And because it's not safe to be angry at that person, or they feel like they can't express that anger, it's almost as if they have to eat to get then angry at themselves, because the anger has to go somewhere, right? So if it's not going to go out towards the person, it's going to go towards you. So this is all subconscious. You're not thinking about, I want to get angry at myself. But subconsciously, it's like you might be engaging in ways that self-sabotages yourself. And so maybe by eating, it's in a way that you're self-sabotage. Like, for example, if you don't feel like you're lovable, I might, or if you're really scared to figure out if people truly are going to love you for who you are, and you're scared to find out that answer, you might be overeating to self-sabotage, because then you can easily say, well, people don't like me maybe because I'm overweight, but they're really scared that people won't like them from them.
Yes, they've done a lot of studies on sexual abuse victims, sometimes being very overweight as a way of keeping people away from you.
Yeah, it's like
right?
a protection mechanism.
An insulation against closeness.
Yeah. Yeah, the fear of intimacy, the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment. It's almost as if it's a way subconsciously to keep people away, so that, if people are away, you don't get hurt. And but you also don't get the closeness and the intimacy that we might crave. So these people want to crave those relationships. It's just because of the fear, eating can be a way that you keep people at a distance.
Okay. So if I am listening to the show, mm-hmm. and I'm like, this is all very nice, but I think I love myself and I just love M&Ms. Yeah. I can't stop eating M&Ms. What are you going to say to me, Melissa Hindley?
Well,
clinical counselor.
I would try to keep like an M&M journal.
An M&M journal. I love it. What does that mean?
Or any food journal, but just be curious. To ask yourself, if you really want to see the difference. Even with my chocolate, I say that I have a chocolate, like I'm obsessed with chocolate. But just recording any time that I do eat chocolate is just to record the day and time, and to see if I'm, what was going on that day. Was it maybe a little bit more stressful day? Was there any triggers? Like, was I tired? Was I feeling overwhelmed? Could I have been maybe a little bit sad? So you're just starting to slowly connect, because sometimes all of this is out of our awareness. It happens so automatic that we're not aware that there's certain emotions that could be leading us to want to reach out for food. So just keeping a food journal, a food record, or an M&M record, or a chocolate record, but just to make a list of the times that you ate it, and then what was going on in your life at the time, to see if there's any connection.
Can there be anger in this too? Because I'm thinking of a case early in my career where I had a girl who was binging and purging, and eventually it came out that her parents had always told her, "You're gonna be so fat, nobody will ever want to marry you." And she was actually doing it to get at her parents. Have you seen that? As anger, can be anger a reason why people eat?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, instead of, that client must have been so angry at her parents, but because she felt like she couldn't be angry or, towards her parents, that it turned into a self-sabotaging, but almost as like a, see, I told you, like kind of like a, I told you so, or like a, like kind of a in your face kind of thing, but she's hurting herself along the way to try and prove them right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one because, again, food is such a big part of our lives. And sit down and watch a TV show, there's commercial after commercial about food, and it's very seductive. Would you agree? It's a seductive thing.
Yeah, it's hard. And especially, too, with it, and food bonds people together. There's a lot of, all my friends, we get together over food, right? Food is very much connected to social gatherings. So it can be really, really hard when there's like this social. But like I said before, is trying to plan ahead of time so that you're not ending up making a decision when you're there, because you don't want to also not go to these functions, right? Then you're kind of isolating yourself. But to either, sometimes what I would do is either maybe eat beforehand a bigger meal, like at home, a meal that I prepared for myself, and then go to the social gathering and maybe just have something smaller at the restaurant. So there are some strategies and tips that you don't have to not go to these social gatherings, but also you don't feel like you need to sabotage yourself as well.
What about pressure? What about like if you are from like certain cultures and your in-laws or your parents are going, come on, eat, like why you don't eat, put some like food on your, what are you supposed to do? Like that's hard too.
That's really hard. That I went through that because if I didn't finish my plate, as I mentioned before, that I would get into trouble, or I would get a kind of a stare about why I wasn't finishing my food. But I think just, respectfully putting boundaries and just explaining that, I'm like, I don't know, I would kind of say that I didn't feel well, or that I'm full, and I have to respect that I'm full. But there is a lot of pressure that you have to finish, or that, come on, just have a, when we go sometimes with my friends, it's like, oh, come on, let's share the cake at the end, let's share a dessert. And it's so, and you want to have that bonding experience.
Oh,
so
for sure.
So it's really hard to say no. But
it's hard.
Again, am I going to feel shameful after? You kind of have to ask yourself, am I going to feel guilty after this? Is this self-love or is this self-hate? Your famous question. But it's just, is it worth, like you kind of have to ask yourself the question, is it worth the risk?
And you don't have to become obsessive about it. It doesn't mean that you have to eat healthy all the time. No. I mean, I think that's, everybody makes their own decision on that. And I certainly don't want people listening to the show to feel that they always have to be perfectly healthy. That's a very, very personal choice. And I certainly feel that, we are also trying to live as best a life as we can possibly. So yes, we want to be healthy, but we also want to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Usually when I feel shameful for eating junk, because I am really healthy. So when I do eat something junky, I'll tend to feel like, oh my God, that wasn't healthy. And my husband is always saying to me, okay, but you have to enjoy sometimes too. I mean, you have to enjoy life. We can't be perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's another piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Excuse the pun. But we can't be perfect, right, Melissa?
No.
Please, Melissa, say we can't be perfect.
No, we can't, because I admire one of my really good friends. She recently, a year ago, got into training, and her body, the transformation that she's done is quite incredible, and it inspired me to train as well. But and she eats very healthy, and she documents a lot of social media. There's a lot of people on Instagram that you can follow about what the healthy eating is, but she's also realistic, right? Like she's worked hard to get to where the point that she's at now, but sometimes I'll see her indulge in something that she wouldn't necessarily eat. And that's the balance, right? And people kind of comment, they're like, we were actually talking about this the other day. People are like, oh, you're eating a poutine? Like,
oh my God.
But, it's for her. She did the work, and she's just, at that point, she gave herself the permission. And you can't be so strict, because again, if we are so strict on ourselves, we want to rebel. Right? There's always that point.
That's the thing.
We're going to rebel.
Or feel sorry for ourselves. If I never allow myself anything, that's, you end up feeling sorry for yourself, which I guess leads to a rebellion. Yeah. Melissa, as always, you are absolutely a joy to chat with. I'm so lucky I get to chat with you all the time on the radio and get to see you. It's very nice. Thank you for coming on Straight Talk. How can people reach you?
You can phone the center at 514-777-4530.
And which kind of cases do you like if people are looking for you?
Well, definitely one with anger, or if you have a lot of critical thoughts towards yourself, anxiety, if you're suffering from PTSD.
Food issues,
yes. Because again, that's an emotional problem. So any emotional problems, I love to help out.
Yeah, and you're very good at helping people. So thank you so much again for being on the show.
Thank you.
And we are out of time again today. So I'd also like to thank all of you for listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. I'd like to invite you all to come back next week. We have a lot of good shows coming up. If I'm not mistaken, next week we're doing mindfulness. Very interesting topic. You just heard about mindful eating, to be continued. If you're interested in our retreats, therapy, or other media that was mentioned on this show or previous shows, check out helpforanxietydepression.com. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page, Straight Talk Sandra Reish. And you can certainly leave a question there for me, for Melissa, any of our guests, and you just don't forget to like us while you're there. People are always asking me how you can hear previous shows. So you can hear this show and any prior show as a podcast on my website, straighttalksandrareish.com, on the podcast app of your iPhone, and on iTunes under Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. Drop me a comment or a question anytime at info@helpforanxietydepression.com. If you are a professional and you're looking for keynote speakers or training on anxiety, depression, emotional regulation, or living a purposeful life, remember that we are your source for an evidence-based practice and education. So my name is Sandra Reish, and I promise I'll help you learn to live your best life again next Thursday, same time, same channel. In the meanwhile, this is Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. Keep your eyes on the stars.
Thank you for listening to Straight Talk with Sandra Reish. We hope you've enjoyed today's show, and we'll tune in again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. Now, go live your best life.